We all have to eat. You might as well find out where the best food is. From restaurant reviews to the fun of food from around the region to around the world. This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
And good afternoon, and welcome to The Food Show. I am Andrew Coppolino. It's good to have you alongside. We're running here each and every Sunday at about noon or so for an hour of food talk, food news, food conversation, and sometimes some food contests as well. So I'm glad you could join us. And a welcome to Laura, operating things in the back of the house here. How are you, Laura? Good. How did your eating experiences come along this weekend? Anything really interesting to tell about? Oh, really? Homemade, of course. Homemade tomato soup, of course. Okay. Well, I got a way to get a little bit more adventure into your food regimen yet, coming right up in a little while. And the gentleman that I'm going to introduce now is going to help you do that. Because I have with me, across from me in the studio here, a gentleman who's been on the show a number of times and operates and is the chef of one of the region's top restaurants, certainly one of the ones that's come along most quickly. It's only been 3 years, I think, he's been in business, but he's already captured the imagination of what it means to eat local and real food, and that is, of course, Nick Benninger of Nick and That's Uptown 21 Food and Drink. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me.
You got some exciting food notes coming up because you're also going to be coordinating with Jennifer McClagan, who wrote a little book called Odd Bits, and you're putting together a pretty rangy, I guess, menu of some interesting food bits.
Yeah, we go nose to tail pretty good. It's going to cover a lot of odd bits to be funny. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're really looking forward to it.
So there you go, Laura. You can learn a little bit more if you pay attention because Nick and Jennifer will be talking in the next half hour. We'll be talking about how to put together a nose-to-tail menu, what it means to eat nose-to-tail, and some of the more exotic dishes that can come out of that. Also joining me, it's a privilege to have her back again, too, Jane Dummer. She's a registered dietitian, and she joins us on a regular basis to talk a little bit about healthy eating, what it means to eat healthily, ideas for eating healthily, just sort of general well-being, much of which is part of a food regimen as well. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andrew. It's great to be back.
You've got a sparkling, brand new website. We should note to people. It's JaneDummer.com. Brand new blogs and all that kind of stuff, and packed with information. Tell us about it.
Thanks so much. It was a big jump. I'm looking at blogging now at least once a week. And so clients and other people interested in food and nutrition topics can subscribe to my blog. It's a little bit more interactive than my other website, and I'm now connected on Facebook and Google+. So people out there can connect with me on both.
You can't avoid that kind of stuff, can you? Even in this sort of business of food that you're all three of us are basically in, and I know Nick's quite active on Twitter and whatnot, but it really is a component now to a business, isn't it? It's amazing.
Definitely, and there's a certain age group that are getting into hiring capacities out there who use Facebook quite a bit, and so it was definitely a market that I wanted to get into. So we'll see how it goes. I've been on LinkedIn and Twitter for quite at least 3 years. So,
did you know that today is National Blonde Brownie Day?
That sounds good. Did you bring any for us?
I didn't bring any. No, I didn't bring any. To be honest with you, what's a blonde brownie?
It's a blondie.
A blondie. Okay, yeah. So how do you not use dark chocolate?
It's white chocolate and macadamia nuts or something like that. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it actually is legitimately something.
A blondie? Yeah. It's the opposite of a brownie.
Okay. Well, that just blows my mind. And it's also the feast of Saint Vincent. He's the patron saint of wine growers and vinegar makers. Now, the reason I picked that out is because I think it's kind of funny that wine and vinegar go together, because wine, when it's no good, turns to vinegar. So the same patron saint is responsible for both, I guess, in that. In 1892, Coca-Cola was incorporated, a huge company. And in 1988, now get this, and maybe this fits in with our Odd Bits and Jennifer McClagan interview, the first airport cow lounge, I said that, cow lounge, was set up in Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. They opened a special departure lounge for cows, serving pre-flight food and drink to traveling cattle. I'm serious about that. I'm serious about that.
It's still not open, is it?
No, I don't know. It just says when it opened. I don't know if it is still open. I guess maybe they just wanted to make the animals a little bit more comfortable, because there's that whole stress thing involved with having good quality meat at the end of the
And
process.
if those were breeding animals, they're worth a lot of money.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's pretty important.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's laughable, but it's
a good
pretty
point.
important.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right about that. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's why it's always great to have real chefs on the show, because they really know what they're talking about. Well, Jane, you know what you're talking about when it comes to healthy eating and wellness, and you believe that you can help people and that people should help themselves through establishing something of a lifestyle strategy. But just before we get into that, explain to us what a registered dietitian is, because those are the RD letters that are at the end of your name, like there's an MD letter or a PhD letter or whatever. So what's an RD? What have you done to become an RD?
An RD is, as you mentioned, a registered dietitian, and it's a protected term, so not anybody could call themselves a registered dietitian. As opposed to a nutritionist, anyone can, put a nutritionist term after their name. It takes 4 years of an undergrad program at a university, a science program, and then there's usually a 1-year internship or a master's program. And so it's about 5 to 6 years after high school, and it's mainly based on, chemistry, biochemistry, and then in your latter university days, you get into the more specific clinical nutrition information.
Now, we've seen growing food interest. Restaurants, have taken on completely new, shall we say, scales of operation. They're bringing in local food. They're really concentrating on a lot of different things that they haven't done before. Is the same thing true then with nutrition, with diets, with awareness of food and food health, and the role, I guess, of someone like a registered dietitian?
I think it's really important too for my profession to understand food and to embrace food. And there, certainly because the program is so based on science. Once I got out of university, I actually traveled quite extensively and specifically went to Italy on cooking classes and went and stayed in somebody's home in Sorrento and stayed with a family and learned how to cook over a week. I don't make pasta from scratch at this point, but I learned many different ways to make it. And so that was really important to me as a dietitian, to embrace food and to understand food. I went to the University of Guelph, so the chemistry of food was there, but to
Canada's Food University.
Yes, and to actually understand food. So what I find really interesting is I'm doing some home visits for clients, and I go right into their kitchen and help them out, go through their cupboards, look at serving sizes. But I know the Mayo Clinic out of the U.S. is actually teamed a chef and a dietitian together, and they blog together and they do presentations together. And I think it's a really good team. I'm doing a local project in Simcoe, and I was talking to Nick before we went on the air about, certainly looking at farmers that embrace the whole local and work with, raising cattle and slaughtering cattle within, 400 meters of where they do that.
Yeah,
so
interesting. Well, that is very interesting, but I wouldn't want you going through my cupboards. I wouldn't want to have your mouse come
It's my clients find it really helpful, and they're very surprised. And when we look at serving size, say on a cereal box, and I say pour out how much you eat in the morning, and then now let's look at the serving size. It's a nice example, and it's a good eye opener for them.
Let's talk about your lifestyle strategy and how food how you marshal things in that strategy around food.
What I really focus on is time management and being prepared. So if you're driving home from Toronto or if you're commuting and you don't have anything in your fridge or your cupboards, the accessibility to fast food and is going to obviously divert you. So being prepared. And it's tough because everyone's crunched for time, and we do live in a community that's quite close to areas that we do commute. So what I suggest to people is pick 1 or 2 Sundays a month or Saturdays whenever they do have the time and cook 3 or 4 meals and then freeze it. And it's just getting that time and that schedule in place. And so then you're not driving home at 7 o'clock.
Thinking about what's going to be on the table, right? What about goals? I mean, the thing that people get, I think, off track on is making resolutions and saying they're not going to do certain things. Is that something you recommend, that you actually have these kinds of hard and fast goals, or do you like something that's a little bit more loose?
I call it more of a strategy at this point rather than these hard and fast goals, because you can get really down on yourself, especially New Year's resolutions. Okay, I'm never eating fast food again. Well, that's certainly unrealistic if you were eating 80% fast food the year before. So I talk about more more strategy. So what's realistic? So I'm going to eat less fast food. I'm only going to eat fast food one time a week. So it's a flexible strategy. And what I really suggest is to write things down and then go back to it. So as you said, we're 21 days or 22 days into the year. It takes 21 days to make or break a habit. So people are either into their resolutions or they're not. And if the resolutions were too high on a pedestal, then certainly just bringing them back and not being hard on yourself and reworking them.
How do we estimate like the amount of food that we need? Is it so scientific that people have to know what their weight is and their basal metabolic rates and all that kind of stuff? It could be very complex and scientific.
There's a lot of applications right now online. I blog for a group out of Montreal called SOS Cuisine, and they do meal plans for people. And I suggest to my clients to check out their website at SOS Cuisine. And so they send you meal plans on a weekly basis, as well as your grocery list. When I do meet with my clients, I do actually put through a scientific equation to find out how many calories they do need. But in general, I would suggest there's a lot online. Just take a look and see what you can come up with.
Okay. Nick, from your perspective, a guy who spends all his time in a professional kitchen, when you get home, what do? Do you cook?
I shouldn't say.
You shouldn't say?
People will lose a lot of respect for me. I don't. I'm sure it's no surprise to people, but I don't have the best eyes, so I could use someone like Jane in my life probably. But I'm that perfect example of someone that's not planning ahead. I could be taking food home from the restaurant, but I get home and it's almost like I like the excuse of like, oh, there's nothing to eat. What am I going to do? Order pizza or something.
Yeah. So. But what about your customers then? I mean, when you think about, they come into your restaurant, they have an idea what the food is like. Have you had to adjust what you've done at all, or are you able to sort of have a foot in both camps, give people good quality food that you want to serve that at the same time represents reasonably healthy alternatives? Not something you're concerned with? I
don't worry too much about healthy alternatives at the restaurant. People don't come to our restaurant because they're watching their weight. That's that like flexible day. You're saying go out and have something delicate or decadent. You know, it's not to say our food's heavy. I mean, some of the dishes are, but we don't cook with health in mind per se. We serve balanced meals and balanced plates as far as like texture and flavor and brightness and heaviness goes. But I try not to cook with people's conscience in mind because that's not why they've come to me.
Right, and I guess that's the thing. You're talking about this sort of special day when you know Jane.
And I call it the 80-20 rule too. Okay. So 20% of the time you're indulging, 80% you're trying to eat as healthy as you can, fruits and vegetables, whole grains. Certainly at the restaurant, your portion sizes are like definitely within line. I mean, you go to a buffet and all you can eat, and people really lose perspective on what a portion size is. So that's one thing I'd like to emphasize is really focusing on what, adequate portion sizes and noting when you're hungry and when you're full. And, if you're at an all-you-can-eat buffet for $9.99, it's great to get your money's worth, but in the long term, is it really high quality food, and is it really something you want to do? So.
And that's what I like about our place is if you're breaking those rules, it's on high quality food, so you can feel good about it. You're not going to go home and say, why did I do that for an all you can eat buffet? It's like I did it and it was worth it, and I can't wait to do it again. So.
Well, I'm speaking with Jane Dummer. She's a registered dietitian, www.janedummer.com, and of course Nick Benninger, owner and chef. Co-owner and chef of Nick and Nat's Uptown 21 Food and Drink in Uptown Waterloo, uptown21.ca for more information. We had to take a quick break, but do stay with us. We'll come back. We'll ask Jane a few more questions about how to get a healthy lifestyle on track. I'm Andrew Coppolino. This is The Food Show, and this is 570 News.
This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino. To call Andrew, 519-570-2545. By cell, star 570. Or toll free, 1-800-570-5715. You're listening to The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
And here we are. Welcome back once again. The second segment of The Food Show on a Sunday afternoon. Joining me in studio, of course, Nick Benninger, owner, chef, Nick and Nat's Uptown 21 Food and Drink, and Jane Dummer, a registered dietitian who stops by somewhat frequently to talk to us a little bit about healthy eating, ideas and strategies for a lifestyle, including food, that keeps you running at your peak, I guess, as it were. Now, Jane, you've got some stats, and we're in the midst of a Paula Deen controversy. Now, you laughed at that a little bit, I think, because you thought, well, what the heck? There's a lot more important things going on than what's happening with Paula Deen. But I think it's pretty interesting that I don't know exactly all the details, who she told, when she told, and, what this pill and these medications are, and the issue with her with, I guess it's called adult onset diabetes. Do you have a take on that, a position on that? Is it just a sort of a tempest in a teapot? Or?
Well, certainly in Canada, 90% of the people with diabetes is type 2 diabetes. And with type 2 diabetes, 50%, so half, can be prevented by eating healthy and physical activity. So I guess the concern is because Paula Deen is an influencer and people follow her, certainly if she's not subscribing to healthy eating and physical activity, that can actually, delay, prevent type 2 diabetes, then there is a concern. And I mean, we see that with the Oprah factor. Oprah has influence. She doesn't have a medical degree. She doesn't have, that information, but people seem to follow that.
In just about every aspect of what I was reading, a book or a food you might eat or a movie you might go see. Yeah, the Paula Deen thing, I don't quite know what to make of it. I haven't analyzed it very, very deeply or very, very closely, but what I do find kind of interesting is that she, and that's a very neutral word on purpose, but she suggests kids eat a cheeseburger, with a Krispy Kreme donut as the bun, and in a period when we've got gross obesity in young children, across the continent. You wonder, I just can't hold these two disparate images.
No, it's a really good point, because there's almost 30% of our kids from 2 to 17 are either overweight or obese. And that's not a good stat.
Right.
And that's not a stat to be proud of. So certainly, public health, working with registered dietitians, and if, the chefs on the Food Channel do have that influence, then certainly taking that into consideration.
Yeah. I mean, the way I live my food life, I have to eat out for what I do at restaurants on a weekly basis, sometimes twice a week, and I don't. It's no hold bars for me, as Nick will know. But what I do when I'm not in a restaurant is I eat healthy, and it becomes then an opportunity for me when I go out. I'm going to have the foie gras. I'm going to have the nice big pork, chop and all the goodies that go with it, and mashed potatoes that are nice and creamy. But I don't eat that on a regular basis, and I think that's the whole idea of what restaurants can do.
Kind of what we're talking about
Right.
here. It's the conscious decision to do the 80-20. I'm out for my job. I'm eating this, but when I get home, I'm going to have, the fruits and vegetables for snacks. I'm going to have, smaller portion sizes. I'm going to have wine, but not the whole bottle. Like, it's just...
Oh, darn. Speaking of wine, I had some Mexican wine from Baja, California last night. First time I've ever had it. It wasn't too bad, actually. I was surprised to find it.
What grape was it? Or
it was a cab, I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
so very interesting. That's what I keep in my pantry, but you've got 10 other foods that you think people should be keeping in their pantry. So why don't we go through that?
Yeah, so as I started the segment saying eating healthy is easy when you're prepared. So the 10 foods I suggest, having bananas, apples, almonds or walnuts or both, oatmeal, eggs, yogurt, milk, natural peanut butter, tuna, and whole grain bread. And so those are kind of taking in all 4 food groups. If there's allergies, certainly looking at like a soy beverage or almond beverage instead of the milk. Having eggs having boiled eggs ready to go at any point in your fridge is a great, quick, you can make an egg salad sandwich very quickly, or you could slice it up on a salad, and it's high protein and good quality protein.
Deviled eggs?
Sure.
Well, then you got to put mayonnaise in them. I don't think that's.
Well, you could use the yogurt.
You could use yogurt, yeah. So these are just simple things. People don't even have to really go to any specialty stores to get them. I mean, nuts can be bought at the bulk barn. They can be bought at grocery stores and just store them, and they keep quite a while too. They don't go off too quickly, and it's stuff that you can always have readily available and accessible.
You can whip up a quick meal or snack very, very easily.
Now, you talk about celebrating your success. Once you've got these resolutions sort of underway, you start to have a little bit of success. You start to notice a difference. What do you mean by celebrating your success?
Just be really happy about what you're doing. Notice your energy level. Notice what you're doing and how it's working for you, and just keep up the good work. So, don't. I usually don't suggest rewarding yourself with a blondie or a brownie or something like that. It's more, if you're looking to purchase something or treat yourself to a night out or something like that, just to celebrate it and to pat yourself on the back and say, it takes a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned with your job, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of commitment, and just to focus on that and just to be really happy that you're doing it.
And holistically, we're thinking about getting a little bit of exercise at the same time. I know, Nick, you're a bike rider and you do mountain bike kind of riding, and that sort of is the physical outlet for you. But to couple that with good eating habits permits all of this to be the success to come more quickly, and I guess it gets more entrenched into your daily routine.
Yeah, certainly fitting in fitness and fitting in things that you love to do. So don't join a gym if you're not a gym person. This morning I went out for a walk, and thank you people who shoveled your sidewalks and not so much for the people who didn't shovel your sidewalks. But it was a great day. I mean, the sun was out and I enjoy walking. So that's part of my fitness program. So just picking something you like to do, doing it at least 3 times a week. Right now I'm commuting for a contract, and it's tricky. It's like I'm in my car, I'm sitting all day, and I really notice the fitness isn't there. And it's actually, it's a part of me, and that I'm really trying to be more aware of, and where else can I fit it in? And so it's all about time management and where else, noticing where else you can fit it in.
Very good. Thank you, Jane, for
You're
all
welcome,
the insights
Andrew.
and tips. Give us a bit of a plug again for your website. People can go and learn more about where they can learn more about this kind of stuff.
Sure. So it's janedummer.com, and as I mentioned earlier, it's really exciting that you can subscribe to my blog. I'm going to be blogging about once a week, and I'm actually working with some volunteers out of the University of Guelph, the undergrad program for nutrition, and they're helping me out with my content for my blog. And so it's just at janedummer.com.
Thanks for coming back and telling us a little bit more about healthy lifestyles and recharging us at this time of the year to find those resolutions and goals and get them on track again. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Now, coming up in our next segment, we're going to get on the phone with somebody by the name of Jennifer McClagan. And I don't know if you know that name. She's the author of books like Fat and Bones, but she's just recently published a book called Odd Bits, How to Cook the Rest of the Animal. There's going to be an opportunity for you to win this book by calling in, so please get by the telephone and get ready. Now, what's really neat is the teaming up that's happening here between basically who is now a world-renowned author with a region-renowned and outside of the region chef, Nick Benninger, because there's going to be an Odd Bits dinner coming up. That's midweek, right, Nick?
Wednesday.
And that's actually the 25th. Mm-hmm. So that's actually Robbie Burns' birthday.
Yeah, it is.
So there's a bit of a coordination of some kind of interesting odd bits that you can eat. And we'll be talking a little bit more about the great meal that's being prepared by Benninger and staff, as well as the book Odd Bits. So please stay tuned. This is Andrew Coppolino, and this is The Food Show, and you're listening to 570 News.
We all have to eat. You might as well find out where the best food is. From restaurant reviews to the fun of food from around the region to around the world. This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
And welcome back once again. This is the third segment of The Food Show, and time does fly when we're having fun. We've been talking to Nick Benninger, Uptown 21, and Jane Dummer, a registered dietitian. Now, if you're a meat eater, the things you might most recognize are things like, strip loins, what else is there? Neck tenderloins, there's ribs,
ribeyes,
T-bones. Those are the sort of the normal cuts of meat,
hamburgers.
Hamburgers, that's right, that we usually get. However, there's a whole world of other meats that are out there. They're the odd bits, the offal, the stuff that you don't necessarily see on your butcher's shelf as much. It's changing, though, and part of the change is perhaps a result of or in consequence with Odd Bits, How to Cook the Rest of the Animal. It's a great new book by the author of Fat, a James Beard Foundation Award Cookbook of the Year, and the author, of course, is Jennifer McClagan. She joins me on the line. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello, Andrew. How are you?
I'm great. I'm glad to have you back here. It's great to talk with you, and I think I love to see the kind of energy when a chef like Benninger and Nick and Nuts Uptown 21 coordinate with first-rate cookbooks and things, and get a lot of really neat cooking and restaurant energy. So we're going to welcome you to the region in a few days, and I'm pleased that you're able to join us here in the Waterloo region.
I'm really looking forward to coming. It's fun to work with chefs because I think they like cooking these parts of the animal because they can't always put it on their menu, right? It's a little hard sometimes to sneak in there, and so they love working with it, and I love to see what they do.
Well, I wanted to ask you, my impression is here that we have a wonderful book that's got recipes in it. It's got a lot of food history, but I want to ask you, is it a food book or is it a cookbook, or is there sort of a crossover line where it's both?
I hope it's both. I mean, it is essentially a cookbook, but I always like to write something more than a cookbook because I think there's kind of enough cookbooks out there. So I want to introduce people to a topic, give them some recipes to try, and then maybe help them go out there and try some of their own recipes using those ingredients.
So I guess you started with a sort of the fat book or the bones book. You sort of were more general, I guess, and now you've narrowed in to a book that is very particular in the kinds of cuts of food that you're serving or preparing. What was the inspiration for this book? How did you come to decide that now is the time for a book about offal?
I think my problem is that, it's been so neglected. And I will point out that it's not just about offal. It is, I try to lead the reader in gently by saying, there's things like pork belly. There's cuts like, lamb ribs that haven't been popular and become popular. Even shanks. There's a couple of shank recipes in there. So, 20 years ago, these would have been odd bits. Today, they're almost normal bits. And so I try to lead the reader in that way. And then I put out all the rest of the animal because it's so overlooked. It's so delicious. Some of it's surprisingly cheap. It's a way to stretch your dollar. And it's really interesting to cook with because there's so many different kind of textures and tastes.
That may be true, Jennifer, but when I look at that first chapter about getting ahead and you introduce people how to cook head cheese, that's a pretty brave opening salvo.
Yeah, I know people argue that I shouldn't start with that, but it just made sense for me to start at the head. So you can skip right down to the middle section and start with some spare ribs or at the end in a shank and work your way back to the head.
Now, the book has gotten a lot of attention. It's been on bestseller lists. It's been reviewed by journals such as the Wall Street, or newspapers such as the Wall Street Journal. What's your take on all of this? How has the reception been from your perspective as the author?
It's been a lot more positive than I'd hoped for because I always think it's a hard topic. But I think more and more people are thinking about this, and I think people are thinking about what they eat and how they eat. So, if you're going to eat meat and you want to eat well-raised meat that's been humanely raised and grass-fed and well looked after, you can't be throwing half the animal away, which is what we're doing at the moment. So I think people are interested in finding ways on how to cook the rest of the animal. And I think it's always good to have kind of a controversial topic and a cover that kind of punches you in the face so people at least take a second look.
Now, I want you to stick with me here on the line, Jennifer. It's Jennifer McClagan I'm speaking with from jennifermcclagan.com, the author, of course, of Odd Bits, How to Cook the Rest of the Animal, and it's published by HarperCollins. Nick Benninger, you've teamed up with the people at Wordsworth and with Chef author McClagan. What is the attraction for you with Odd Bits?
Well, we do enjoy cooking with these things from time to time, but as Jennifer said, it's not always easy. So for one, it was really nice to get the audience in that wants to do this stuff. So we're free to go for it, gung ho. We don't have to pull punches too much and hide things with strong flavors. So it's really exciting to get a chance to cook these things for people that are really looking forward to it. The other thing is it's just a lot of fun to meet these people like Jennifer. To work with them is a huge honor. So it's part selfish because we just want to, and the other half is it's great for business. So.
The event is sold out, I should say.
It's sold out really easily.
Did that surprise you? When you think about
it, did and it didn't. Like it surprised me because we weren't sure how many people would really want to eat these things. And in the beginning, my menu was going to be I was going to do a couple of challenging things and then lean towards some of the shanks or the short ribs or something easier. But as the event sold out and people's expectations were that they would eat some strange things, we decided to go that route instead. So we're doing like a 7-course meal with covering a lot of different parts of the animal. But it didn't surprise me because we at the restaurant are blessed with a really strong following of customers. People are loyal to what we do. They get into the concepts we've come up with, and they're willing to sort of come along for the ride, and they trust that between what they've seen with us and she's not exactly her first cookbook, so
right.
there's a draw for it. So we're really happy that it did sell out.
A question then for both of you, Jennifer and Nick. The idea of picking up on your word trust in there, we've got items on your menu and items in the book such as brains and things that are unusual for people to eat, and of course there's a certain maybe stigma attached. The certainty, Jennifer, of eating healthily with this kind of food, how do we handle that? How can we be satisfied that it's safe? What can you say to make us feel safe, for that we have that trust?
I think it is safe, and I think, eating good quality meat is a healthy thing to eat. I mean, I'm not arguing that you eat it every day, brains or all these things every day of the week, but I think you can eat them a couple of times a month. I think you really have to know where your meat is coming from. I think that's an important thing for everyone to know. You need to be buying it from a good butcher who knows the source of his meat or from a local supplier. So they are safe to eat. People have been eating. It's only probably the last 40 years that people have kind of turned away from these items when steaks and prime cuts have become so cheap. They haven't bothered with these cuts. So, we've been eating them since the dawn of time. They're not going to kill you.
I want to get back to that point, but Nick, we'll just pick up the point for you. You work very, very closely, or I should say, how closely, I guess, do you work with your suppliers when it comes to sourcing materials for your restaurant in general, regardless of what the cut of meat is?
Really closely. You can, if anyone's watching on TV, the menu here has names of all the farmers written beside it for whom I'm going to be getting these things from. We pride ourselves on the relationships we have with our farmers, and it pays off huge because I've said it 1,000 times, they become business partners with us because they have a deep caring for how good of a business we run and how well we serve their product. So it's huge to be close, really related with your farmer or butcher and or seafood producer. And then you don't need to worry about those issues. If my farmer wouldn't have let me have the blood if he didn't think it was safe, that's the kind of relationship you need with these people.
I'm speaking with Nick Benninger. He's the owner and co-owner and chef at Nick and Nat's Uptown 21 Food and Drink, and of course Jennifer McClagan, Odd Bits, How to Cook the Rest of the Animal. And you can find out more about Jennifer on jennifermcclagan.com. This coordination of author and chef, how did that work? Did you pick dishes that you want? What was the coordination between the two of you?
We just go back and forth a little bit. We came up with a menu, and we sent it back and forth. Jennifer really wanted to see the tongue on the menu, so it ended up there. And I think in most of these cases, the author puts most of the trust in the chef. I mean, they've made the book. They know it's full of great recipes, and they trust that we know our clientele, I think, and what they want to see. So,
Jennifer McClagan, the recipes themselves, where do they come from in your book? How did you decide that you were going to do chicken feet or tongue or whatever it is? And then how did you create these recipes? Are they historic recipes that you've tweaked for a 21st century palate?
Yes, some of them are. It's pretty hard to come up with a totally original recipe. Mm-hmm. You can come up with a twist, or you can change a recipe to a certain extent. But there's a lot of recipes out there. I've only just skimmed the surface. Someone suggested that I could do Odd Bits Chinese style, Odd Bits Mexican style. I mean, almost every culture, even the Anglo-Saxon culture, has a vast repertoire of these recipes. So I think what I did was went through ones that I liked. I tried them. I did tweak them because, tastes change. People don't like as heavier dishes, so I wanted to make them more appetizing. I wanted to make sure that because they're unusual things, that your first, the first thing would be that you would like it straight away, that it would be an interesting taste, and that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to really shock people, although I seem to with some of my recipe choices, but I just wanted to make good tasting food with these parts.
Well, it's very attractive when you see salad of pig's feet and vegetables, or vinaigrette for porky bits or salad. Sounds great. Jennifer, stick with us on the line. We've got a caller. We'll take this call now and see what's going on. Stephen, are you there?
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Stephen. Do you have a comment or a question for Nick or Jennifer?
Well, a comment. Enjoy your show, Andrew, and I follow you on Facebook, and you really post some wonderful stuff. I spent 32 years in the meat industry, and offals have always been a favorite of mine. In fact, just got back from a couple-week cruise over Europe and was spoiled with sweetbreads and calves' brains every evening, so I love it. one unusual thing that my great aunt used to make here in the Waterloo region, and you can no longer do it because it's illegal, was calf lung.
Oh, yes.
And it was a good dish. It was an acquired taste, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
But love your show, and I wish I'd known about this upcoming event a little sooner. I would have loved to have attended it.
Well, there's lots more, I'm sure, to come out of this book, and maybe we could see one in the future again. Thanks for your call, Stephen.
Thanks, Andrew.
We have to take a break. Jennifer, I hope you'll stay on the line with us. I have a question for you that's centered around this whole idea of North America versus Europe and this kind of eating, and maybe we'll get to that right after the break. I've been speaking with Jennifer McClagan, Odds Bit author, and Nick Benninger, the chef and co-owner of Nick and Nat's Uptown 21. I'm Andrew Coppolino. This is The Food Show. You're listening to 570 News. Stick with us.
This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino. To call Andrew, 519-570-2545. By cell, star 570. Or toll free, 1-800-570-5715. Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
Hi, welcome back again. Here we are with the Food Show, the very last segment. Now, just before we get back on the line with Jennifer McClagan, well, we're going to get Jennifer on the line because Jennifer is going to give us a trivia question from and about her book, Odd Bits, How to Cook the Rest of the Animal, and that person who gets the right answer will get this copy of the book, which we will make sure that you're able to come pick it up here at the station. Let's see, Jennifer, do you have a question in mind that you'd like to ask? We will take the 10th caller. That's a lot. We'll take the 10th caller who answers this question right from Jennifer McClagan.
Yes, I want the caller to tell us exactly what sweetbreads are.
There we go. Sweetbreads. What are sweetbreads? So the 10th caller through that gets the answer of what sweetbreads are will get Odd Bits, How to Cook the Rest of the Animal. Now, Jennifer, before the break, we talked about, and you mentioned this earlier, and wait a sec, let me digress again. When I understand from my father that my Sicilian grandmother, when he was a little boy, this would have been almost 70 or 80 years ago now, she would cook tongue. That was a normal meal at their house. You've said that that's gone away, but maybe now it's coming back again. And is it something that is a particularly North American trait that we don't eat this stuff, whereas it is eaten in other parts of the world?
Yes, I think it is typically North American, where the meat is actually very, very cheap. The prime cuts are very cheap, not usually the quality ones, but the ones that come from factory-farmed animals that people's got used to buying. You go to Europe, and people are still eating odd bits, right? You see them on menus, and even more importantly, you see them in butcher's stores, you see them in markets, so people are familiar with them. Whereas here, people don't see them at all. You hardly see a set of brains or a calf's head in a window. But that's something you'd see in Europe or in Asia or South America for sure in the markets. And so people are familiar with these cuts, and so they're still cooking with them.
I want to talk to Nick about the menu, particularly at the dinner that's coming up. You'll be there, of course?
Yes, I will.
I'm looking forward to that. But before we I don't want to make this a political issue, but you mentioned something about responsibility, and there is some politics involved in it. Is this a responsible thing to do? Do you see it as a change, a sea change in the way people are thinking about eating and eating practices?
Oh, I think it does come down to a moral issue, eating offal, because if you're going to raise animals for meat and eat meat, you can't just throw them away. You know, I like to quote Fergus Henderson, who's a great nose-to-tail proponent, and he said, it's only polite if you're going to knock an animal on the head to eat all of it. And that's a very British thing to say, but it is. You can't be giving these parts away for dog food. I mean, you should be eating everything that's good in that animal. That's the way you show respect to the animal as well.
Have you suffered any backlash? Has PETA people come knocking on your door?
Not so much this time as with fat and foie gras, but there's always vegans and vegetarians that come after me, and I'm killing the planet and all that. I believe that humans are designed to eat meat, and I keep telling them I'm not arguing to eat any more meat. I'm just arguing to eat good quality meat and all of the animal that we kill. In fact, I think we should probably eat a lot less meat, but we should eat every part of the animal.
Well, what parts of the animal, Nick Benninger from Uptown 21, are we going to be eating at the meal that's coming up on the middle of this week?
We're going to be eating quite a bit, really. We're starting off with a bang. We're starting with testicles to kind of get the cobwebs out and to get the shock over with.
Okay.
And I think people will be amazed at how mild they are, and the taste is great, so succulent. Then we're going to have a plate of ears done 2 ways and some grilled tongue on there as well. We're going to do some brain ravioli. We have a dish that combines heart and bone marrow. And then for dessert, we have pig's blood ice cream with chocolate. Chocolate and pig's blood ice cream.
Wow. Jennifer, what do you think? Sound good?
That sounds fabulous. I think it's going to be really interesting because I think most of the people will want to try all these things, and it will give them a good opportunity to taste all these different tastes. And I'm sure they'll be surprised, like Nick said, by the testicles.
Well, and by everything. I mean, one thing I love about this book is how you take very unapproachable items, but they're prepared in ways like the brains ravioli with mushrooms is a great example that people won't even be offended by it in any way because the flavors are so comfortable. So.
Yes, I think that's right, Nick. I think the brain ravioli, I've converted a lot of people to eating brains because brains just have a wonderful creamy texture, and they take on the flavor of everything else. They don't have a strong flavor themselves. They have this fabulous texture that works brilliantly in the ravioli.
Right.
And it looks like we have a caller. Is this the 10th caller, Laura, that's called in? Yeah. Okay, June, you're on the line here.
Hi.
Hi, June. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Waterloo.
And do you have the answer to the question? Jennifer McClagan is here, and Nick Benninger in studio, and Jennifer will be the arbiter here and decide whether you've gotten the right answer. So,
Okay, I think it's glands, things like the thymus and pancreas.
Jennifer?
Half right.
Half right. Oh, so it's not the
Did
pancreas.
she get half the book then?
Yeah. You know what? We're just about out of time, and she did mention thymus. Do you think we can give it to her?
Yes, but I would like to make sure that it shouldn't be the pancreas, and often in North America the pancreas is included. It should be only the thymus glands, which disappear as the animal gets older. That's what makes sweetbread so special and so expensive.
Okay, that's great. I want to thank you, Jennifer McClagan, for joining us here on the line, and we've given the book away to June in Waterloo. Sorry, June, stay tuned. Don't hang up, and Laura will get all your particulars so we can help you connect and get the book.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
And Jennifer McClagan, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you in Waterloo region. Thanks for putting the book together, and thanks for the arrangements to work with Nick Benninger, and a great menu, and I think some educational and tasty dishes will be served, no doubt.
I think it'll be fun. I'm really looking forward to Wednesday night.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye.
Nick, does this kind of cooking require a special skill? I mean, I've cooked some wild things, but I've never cooked an ear, and it's not something that you see on menus very often. I know you've got a vast restaurant and cooking experience, but do you play around with this stuff and learn how it cooks?
Yeah, there's some skill involved for sure. I shouldn't tell anyone there's not, or they'll never show up again. But they are very approachable recipes. Like, to keep going back to the testicles, nothing's easier than cooking a testicle. It's you clean it, you fry it, and it's ready to eat. There's some of them are hard, some of them aren't, but I would say that her cookbook and her recipes are far, far more approachable than a lot of cookbooks I've seen that involve simple ingredients but taken to complex levels. That's the thing, is it's the intimidation factor, and it's finding it. Finding these products is going to be the hardest part. Me to get in touch with a good farmer, and you're halfway there.
Okay, give us the details. I know the event is sold out, but give us the details of Uptown 21.
Well, we're a locally focused restaurant. We're open Tuesday to Saturday. We do tapas on Tuesday, which is really popular, and our brown bag lunches on Friday are a lot of fun. You can follow us on Twitter at nnuptown21 or Twitter something.
Yeah. Website.
Uptown21.ca. Thank you,
Jane. Have we convinced you?
You know what?
If we could find you a ticket, would you come in?
Yeah, I would. The heart and bone marrow, I'd love to try. And I'm curious with the ears, would they burn easily?
Quickly.
Well, they're thin, right? And it's cartilage layered between 2 layers of fat. Most of the cooking takes place in water, so.
Thanks, guys. Well, that's it for the show for this week. We got to get out of here. Thanks to registered dietitian Jane Dummer, janedummer.com, and to Nick Benninger, uptown21.ca, and Oddbits author Jennifer McClagan, jennifermcclagan.com. Thank you all. Thank you also to our studio producer here at 570, cameraman, internet producer Greg Bowen, and studio operator Laura Geddes. Visit 570news.com for an archive of past shows, and follow the Food Show at twitter.com, 570 Food Show. Read my column in the Kitchener Post each Friday. Join us again next week for our Chef's Round Table discussion. Remember, eat wisely and eat well, and thank you for joining us here at the Food Show, only on 570 News.